Alright, Mia's here. Oh my god, I should have moved my setup. Now I can't move this over nicely because I rearranged things a bit and there's cords in the way. Alright, well, that's too bad. The witness will stay. Mia. Phoenix. Read this note out loud. Mia, what's this? Memo received from Mia. What does it say? Your Honor, if I may. Hi, Garrett.
You're quite persistent today, Mr. Wright.
You bet I am. My life is riding on this one.
I have, wrong person.
I have something I would like to read to the court. Take that! The memo Mia has given me was a list of names. Many of them sounded strangely familiar. People in finance, famous celebrities. That's when it happened. Stop! Desist! Halt! Please, stop! Make him stop! How did you get that list? Mr. White, admit your guilt right here, right now. Or else this list will be released to the press. White, I confess. I confess! I did it. I hit her. I hit Miss Mia with the thinker. Case closed, Your Honor.
Well, I see no reason to continue this trial. Mr. Wright?
Yes, Your Honor.
You've done it again. That was quite a spirited defense.
Yes, Your Honor. I guess you could say that. If only you knew how spirited it was. 'Cause spirit channeling.
Well, this court finds the defense, rather, the defendant, Mr. Phoenix Wright, not guilty. That is all. This court is adjourned.
September 9th, 2:24 p.m. District Court, Defendant Lobby Number 1. Well, I never thought I'd be saying this again, but congratulations. You're lucky I was born a Fae. I'm lucky I had both you and Maya on my side. I'm glad you made it. Thank you, Phoenix. You risked a lot to help me, and Maya. I won't forget it as long as I live. As long as you live. My time here's running out. Huh? Maya's powers are still weak. I can't stay here that long. What? No! There's still so much to say. Don't worry. I'm sure we'll meet again. Chief! I'm not the chief anymore. Phoenix? Can you come to the office tonight? Say, 9 o'clock? The office? I'll see you later. Chief. Mia! September 9th, 9:02 p.m. Fay and Company Law Offices. Being here, it's hard not to think about that night. You came! Mia? I was kind of worried you might not. Huh? Of course I came. Well then. I'm pretty hungry. How about a burger? Mia? You should see your face! Mia? What are you talking about? It's me, Maya. Maya? What? Did I look like my sister? Look like? You were her. I might be able to use that. Oh, Phoenix, go to the store and buy me lunch, would you?
Maya, why are you here?
Because of this. See? Mia wrote me a letter. Take care of Phoenix for me.
Take care of? Huh?
She means the office. This office. Someone has to help with the new Wright & Co. law offices, right? And who better than me? Maya Fay, reporting for duty. Wait, no, on second thought, let's make this casual. Yo, Nick! Maya here, ready to get down to business. You don't mind me calling you Nick, do you? It's a great name. Mia said that's what your friend Larry calls you. Nick? You know what this means? We're partners.
You know, when I think about it, it is Maya's fault I'm here now, but if it wasn't for her, I'd probably be in jail. Wright & Co. law offices. It's got a good ring to it.
Yeah. Thanks, Maya.
I'm gonna adjust the camera position a little bit because I'm looking so far to the right. Oh no! A cat just fell in my drink! I dropped a cat! I dropped a cat in my tea! I don't have anything to fish it out. I guess I just have to drink it. And it's polymer. That's like probably maybe food safe. I'll have to fish the cat out at the end. I will not drink this cat. It is not digestible. Alright. Good luck, Phoenix. I'll always be here, watching. It's a little bit creepy for a ghost to say.
Right. Okay, Nick, let's do it.
Huh? Do what?
Burgers, dummy! Burgers! There's a great burger joint just down the street.
Oh, dang. Thank you. I forgot to update that. Alright, give me 2 secs. That's not how you spell Phoenix. F-O-E? There we go. Okay. Oops, I wrote Phoenix Point. Phoenix Wright. I clicked the wrong one. Okay, now it's probably the right thing. You guys can both be my favorite still. Garrett, you get to be my favorite today, specifically. Is that good enough? Come on, time's a-wasting. Let me rotate my things so I can... I did not set up my desk nicely for this. Okay. Okay, wait up! The end. For now. A brand new episode has been added. This still isn't in a good spot. Oops. Yeah, let's go with that. Turnabout Samurai! A new case. Oh yeah, I should save. Double save. Grah! You have disgraced me for the last time, Steel Samurai. The pale moon in the sky cries for your blood! The moon? Oh, I missed the line, sorry. For it is the last moon you will ever see! See you in hell, evil magistrate! Whoa! Grah! The warriors' swords gleam and strike in the moonlight. One has fallen, but who? Only the moon knows. Don't miss next week's exciting episode. The Dark Messenger returns. October 14, 5:31 p.m. Wright & Co. Law Offices. That rocked! See you in hell, evil magistrate! Whoa, stop waving that broom around. Oh, Nick! I didn't know you were here. Of course I'm here. What was that surreal show you were watching? What? Nick, you mean you don't know the Steel Samurai? He's only the most popular TV hero for young people. Young? Like, how young? 10 years old? Then what the heck are you doing getting all excited? Hey, I'm only 17. That's 17. See? I'm a teen, not like you, Nick. Hey, don't talk to me like I'm your grandpa or something. I'm only 24 myself. Then watch it with me. He's really cool. And it's really popular. When they asked grade school kids what they wanted to be, Steel Samurai was #1. I really worry about kids these days. Gramps. Well, the Steel Samurai's over. I guess it's time to close up the office. I guess. Wish we had some clients. A month has passed since my trial. Mia's murder was the talk of the town for some time, but no one paid any attention to the Wright & Co. law offices. How am I going to pay the rent this month? It'll be okay. I'm sure some big client is just around the corner. Foreshadowing. October 16th, 8:14 a.m., Phoenix Wright's bedroom. Hello, this is Phoenix. Nick! Maya, what? It's still early. It's the Steel Samurai! The Steel Samurai's got arrested! Huh? You mean that guy on that show? Yes! They're saying that the Steel Samurai killed a villain! Isn't that what he's supposed to do? Yeah, on TV! Yeah, on TV. No, I mean he actually did it, in real life! He skewered a villain with a samurai spear! My voice is cracking. I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. Just come to the office, quick! Please, Nick! October 16, 9:22 a.m., Wright & Co. Law Offices. I just wonder, like, where Maya lives, because if she used to live in the mountains for her training, like, now that she works here, does she live in the office? Maya's here, watching television. Now for the morning news. Actually, let's do a girl reporter, because that'll be easier for me. Now for the morning news. The actor Will Powers was arrested yesterday. Powers played the lead role in the popular kids show The Steel Samurai, Warrior of Neo-Old Tokyo. He was arrested on suspicion of murder. The victim was Jack Hammer, who plays the villain known as the Evil Magistrate. His body was found still inside the Evil Magistrate costume. The samurai spear was also found stuck through the body. Police believe this was a murder weapon and are investigating further. This has to be a joke. No, no, no! It's a nightmare! The Steel Samurai is over! The world is over! Yes, Wright & Co. law offices. What? Nick! It's the Steel Samurai! What? Yes? Yes, of course. We'll be right there. Let's go, Nick! Go? Go where? They have the Steel Samurai down in detention. So what? So I've decided this will be our first case. Okay, that's just the usual stuff. Alright, fine, we'll go. October 16, Detention Center, Visitors Room. What's wrong, Maya? It's him, in the flesh. Is that guy really him? What do you mean, that guy? Of course it's him. Will Powers, our client. That's him. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but he definitely did it. Murder, at least once, maybe twice. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What are you saying? Yes? Something wrong? No. This is getting off to a great start. I know. You're disappointed, aren't you? Disappointed? Oh no. No, it's okay. This is the real me. When I got the part of the Steel Samurai with that mask, I decided I would never show my face in public until the job was over. It's the kids, you know. I didn't want to wreck their dreams. Oh. I guess it didn't matter. So much for dreams. I wonder what they think of the Steel Samurai now. Nick! What? He's a good guy. I mean, he's good. Yeah. He didn't do it. Alright, let's ask him what happened. Maybe you could start by telling us what happened. Yes, of course. It seems like it was only yesterday. Actually, it was only yesterday. The cast had come down to Global Studios for a run-through. We went through a few action sequences at 10 that morning. There was a rehearsal scheduled for 5 in the afternoon. But when 5 came around, and the staff gathered at the studio, the evil magistrate was found lying in a crumpled heap near the set. They took off his mask and discovered that it was Jack Hammer, dead. He had been expertly skewered with the samurai spear. The samurai spear? Yes, it's a long spear that the Steel Samurai uses as a weapon. Alright, let's ask a bit more about the show and his character. Maybe, could you explain just what the Steel Samurai is? Nick! How could you say such a thing? I'm sorry, sir. I apologize for my partner. He's new to this, and a bit out of touch with the world. Hey, who's new to this? No, it's alright, really. The Steel Samurai is the lead character in a popular kids show. He walks the streets of new old Tokyo, fighting a battle after battle against the evil magistrate and his minions. Of course, he never really defeats the evil magistrate. Although, I guess he did defeat him this time. I see. Old Tokyo, who comes up with these names? Alright, do you have an alibi, friend? Now, where were you on the day of the murder? Well, that morning I came to the studio at 9. We worked through some action scenes until noon. Rehearsal was to begin at 5, but I was a little tired. So after lunch, I took a nap in my dressing room. When I woke up, it was after 5. I was late for the rehearsal. I hurried to the studio and found everyone looking shocked. They arrested me on the spot and brought me here. So he was sleeping the entire afternoon of the murder. Some action hero. What will the kids think? I think I should probably check out the scene of the murder. Right. Global Studios. I'll draw you a map. Wow, Nick! Let's go! I'm willing to bet $10 she asked for autographs. Alright. Let's mosey on over. October 16th, Global Studios, main gate. Wow! So this is where they make the Steel Samurai show. Awesome! Aren't you excited?
Hey! You there! You want in, you gotta go through me!
Oh, sorry. We're, lawyers.
Oh yeah? Well that's great. I'm security. And it's my job to make sure that gawkers like you stay out!
Gawkers? Oh. That was unexpected.
Gawkers, sightseers, tourists!
I know the type. You heard about the incident and came to snoop around.
Youths today. Something horrible happens and all you see is wasting your time like this. Don't you have jobs you should be doing? Or lawyers not working the rest of you? Maybe I should become a lawyer too. Sounds like life of East to me. No working, just loafing around all day as you please. But I think when I was a mite different. We don't talk to strangers. Heavy clothes. What are the youth coming to these days? My son hasn't called me and...
Nick? Will I grow up to be like her? Please say no. I don't know. It's possible.
Hey! Listen when you're being spoken to. Youth today.
Oh boy, are we gonna have to talk to her to get through? I should probably get some information. If she's security, she probably knows about the murder. So, what do you do here at the studios?
At Global Studios, we make children's dreams come true. In fact, in my younger days...
No! You were a star?
Only a little twinkle between the stars here, I'm afraid, dearie.
What? Wow.
This place has gone downhill, you know. But 10 years ago, now that was a studio of dreams. Hammer was a big star back then, too, he was.
Hammer?
The victim, dummy. The evil magistrate. He's been reduced to playing villains now. Not exactly the best material to work with.
Can you tell me about Will Powers?
He's not a bad kid, but don't be fooled by his mask. You wouldn't want him on the silver screen without it, believe me. Little old ladies watching would lose their lunch. That's probably why he thought the Steel Samurai was his big chance. No one thought he was capable of doing what he did to poor Jack Hammer.
We don't know for certain that Will Powers is guilty.
Powers? Of course he's guilty. How do I know? I know everything. That's my job.
Let's ask him about this one first. Or ask her, sorry. Why are you so certain Mr. Powers is the killer?
I was standing right here yesterday, I was here from 1 in the afternoon to 5 when they found the body. Now the studio where the murder took place is to the left here. So if you want to go to the studio, you have to pass by me. Only one person went by here between 1 and 2:30 when the murder took place. And that person was, and that person was Mr. Powers? Yes, I saw him.
But Mr. Powers says he was sleeping in his dressing room.
Oh, I'm sure he would say that. He's no fool. But he was the only one that walked by. He's the killer, you can bet your biscuits on it.
Okay, let's ask about Mr. Hammer. What kind of person was Jack Hammer?
What kind of person? Oh, if you only knew. Jack Hammer will live on in many hearts as the ultimate action hero. He was simply dashing in the Dynamite Samurai series.
Should I have heard of that?
But there was an accident during filming 5 years ago. He got an unlucky break after that. Reduced to playing the villain on a children's program. What's more, I heard they were paying him peanuts. That's enough to make you cry. Isn't it about time for you to be heading home? There's nothing to see here. Move along.
Actually, we're here at Mr. Powers' request.
I thought you were suspicious looking. Show me a letter of request. And maybe I'll just let you in.
This lady here thinks she owns the place, obviously. Well, I don't think we have a letter of request. We have an... Oh, let's show her our attorney's badge.
What's that? You giving that to me?
Absolutely not. Alright, it's worth a try. I guess we go back to Powers and ask him for a letter. Hello? How is the studio? They all think I did it, don't they?
Not at all. Isn't that right, Nick?
Right, not at all. At worst, you're a suspect. About the security guard at the main gate to the studio. Oh, the security lady.
She's terrible. She called me suspicious looking.
Yes, actually, she said that same thing to me before. Take off that mask, were her words, I believe. She sucks up to all the bigwigs at the studio. But let her see you stumble once and she'll never let up on you.
Grr, she's got some nerve.
Do you think you could write up a letter formally requesting my representation? Of course. Yeah. I just hope this will get me past that security lady. Cat flavor. Okay, there's something else I could ask him about. Oh right, the alibi, because she said that she saw him. Mr. Powers, you aren't hiding anything from me, are you? What? No, I'd never do that. Earlier you said that you were sleeping in your dressing room after lunch. Yes, like a baby. But the security lady said she saw you that day. She said she saw you heading towards the scene of the crime. What? That's not possible. I really don't know what to say. I was sleeping, I promise. Mr. Powers, if you want me to help you, you have to tell me the truth. I'm new to this lawyer business, and I need every advantage I can get. I know. I'm sorry. But I swear to you, on my mama's grave, I was sleeping. Maybe the security lady only thought she saw me? What did she see? He doesn't seem to be lying. Alright, let's go back. Move. Main gate. a look at this. It's a letter of request from Mr. Powers.
Yes, I recognize the bold, childish scrawl.
Powers' request given to the security lady.
To think he would entrust his fate to youth's such unreliable appearance. Really?
Really?
Anyway, you may pass. But only left from here towards the studios. No going to the right. That's the employee area. No one allowed inside, pal, were my instructions. The good detective told me himself. Hey, Nick!
Huh?
There were maps in the security guard station.
Hey, not bad.
Those are 50 cents apiece, thank you!
Well, time to go, Nick.
50 cents!
Alright, we got a map. Alright, let's just make sure there's nothing else we can ask her about. Alright. Gucci. October 16th, Studio 1 entrance. Hey! Aren't you that murderer from the other day?
Ah! It's that confused detective!
Hey, pal. You know Prosecutor Edgeworth is all upset and it's your fault. I saw him sipping tea and staring gloomily out the window. So?
Hey! If he's depressed, it's all your fault for doing sloppy detective work.
Looks like we struck a nerve.
Detective?
I think you hurt his feelings.
Oh no. I'm sorry.
Well, I think his feelings are easily hurt. You're right, pal. It's all my fault. I can blame other people all I want, but I know the truth in my heart.
Hey, don't take it so hard. There's always the next case.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Hey! What exactly are you two doing here?
Well, we're on this case too, pal.
Huh? Hey, you can't just go around saying pal like that. That's my endearing character trait.
I'd say he's a character, all right.
Let's see if we'll spill some beans. So, how is your investigation going, detective? Well, hey, I can't tell you that, pal.
Nick, maybe you need to be a little more indirect with your questions?
Right. So, detective, mind if I take a look at what you got? What I got? The autopsy report. The latest version, if you please. Right. Sorry about what happened last time, pal. See, what does it say? Time of death, 10:15, or October 15th at 2:30 p.m. Cause pierced through the chest by a spear. Why was Mr. Powers arrested? Simple, pal. The murder took place right over there in Studio 1. Now, the victim entered Studio 1 at approximately 1 p.m. At that time, there was no one other than the victim in the studio. According to the autopsy report, the time of death was 2:30 p.m. Only one person went to the studio between 1 and 2:30. And that person was none other than Will Powers. No one else, pal. If you think I'm lying, ask the security lady at the main gate.
Nick, if that's true, anyone would think that Powers did it with that kind of evidence.
Thanks for cheering me up. Alright, let's ask about old Bag. About the security lady. Oh, that sweet old lady? What a charmer. Huh? Are we talking about the same person? When I showed her my badge, she gave me a donut and some coffee.
Remember what Powers said?
She's a sucker for authority. She even gave me a piece of valuable evidence. What? What kind of evidence? Well, that, photo. A photo of the steel samurai heading toward the scene of the crime. What? Who took that? See the camera up on that gate, pal? The gate? You mean the one with the welcome sign? Oops, wrong foot. The gate? You mean the one with the welcome sign? Yeah. Whenever someone walks by, that camera automatically snaps a photo of them. Oh no! Nick, he has evidence! We're finished! Funny. For someone with hard proof, he doesn't look too happy. What's wrong, pal? You seem down. Don't look so happy when you say that. Oh, we'd like to ask the employees here some questions. Sure thing, pal. Go wherever you'd like. Of course, you're not going to find any clues I haven't already found. I'm glad someone around here seems to be enjoying themselves. Nick, let's go! We've got a free pass to the place. Now's our chance to check things out. Okay, let's check out the security camera. Hey, there's a camera here. That's a security camera. It takes photos of people going to the studio. All you have to do is look at the date and you can see who went where. There's a number plate on the camera, ST1307. That must be the camera's ID number. I think I did that in the wrong way. Okay, let's look at this thing with the head on the ground. The studio mascot. I guess it's a monkey of some kind. But what kind of monkey has a nose like that? He's holding a sign in his hand. Right to Studio 1, left to Studio 2. What's up with that thing? It looks kind of busted. Oh, the wind was pretty strong yesterday and the head broke off. It took that tree down with it too. The entrance to Studio 1. This is the studio where they found Jack Hammer's body. Let's go in and check it out, Nick. Hey, it's locked. Looks like you need a card key to get in. It makes sense that they would want to keep the non-employees out. Can I examine the tree? Detective Gumshoe, what's down the path to the left? It looks like a tree fell down over the path. Oh, yeah. That way's kinda dangerous. You should stay out, pal. There's nothing down there anyway. That's where Studio 2 used to be, they tell me. They don't use it now, though. Sometimes I stop at commas too soon. I don't realize that the sentence is gonna keep going. Alright, let's go back. Nick, look! That security lady is in the guard station stuffing her face with donuts. I guess all cops like their donuts. Yeah, and they're soft enough she doesn't need teeth to chew them. Hey, you! Well, are you satisfied Powers is guilty yet? Ah! She had to make my life harder by giving me that photo to Detective Gumshoe. Can we ask her about the photo? Aha. Why didn't you tell me about the security photo, ma'am? Oh, that? I just thought it would be more thrilling to talk with the detective himself. These things are important, you know. Oh, just to the left from here is where the gate took the camera with the gate with the camera that took the photo. It's my job to check the photos every day, you see. I'm gonna ask about that. About the security camera. Oh yes, the camera. It's automatic. It can tell when someone walks through the gate, see? Then it snaps a photo. Apparently, it records the time when it takes the picture, too.
But I don't bother myself with those details. I just view all the photos on the computer over in the security guard station. I check them every day before going home, I do.
I feel like we asked this already, but it doesn't have a check mark.
This guard station is an essential position. No matter where you go here, you pass by my station first. Now, poor Hammer, he went to the studio just before 1. The murder happened right around 2:30, see? The only one seen going through here between 1 and 2:30 was Powers himself. The security camera got a good look at him, too. If he's not the one who did it, I don't know who is.
Maybe it was you.
Good one, Sonny.
She thinks I was joking. Was the victim Mr. Hammer a popular actor?
Oh, he was the biggest star in the studio.
Was. Past tense?
Oh yes, he was great as the bearded samurai. That too, yes. He shone the brightest back in the day. Making a star like him play the evil magistrate, it's a disgrace, I tell you. Hammer took it pretty hard, and who can blame him?
Maybe we should examine this. Poke around the security gate. The computer that runs the studio security cameras.
Hey, no touching!
Oh boy. I'm gonna have a hard time looking around here, aren't I? An overhead map of the studios. Right from here is the employee area. To the left are the actual film studios. What's this? Looks like a studio van. They probably use it to carry around film equipment. Alright, we can... Is the room separate from the computer? The security guard station. That security lady must like junk food. There's a mountain of it on the desk. I can see the computer that runs the security cameras. How about the gate? The main entrance to the studio. There was a big scene here yesterday with onlookers pressing up against the gate. Alright, clearly there's nothing else to look at. Move to the... Oh, can we go here? October 16th, Global Studios employee area.
Nick! This is where they do all the behind-the-scenes stuff. Hey, look! There's Powers' dressing room! No one's here this soon after the murder, I guess. Let's take a look around.
Examine. The door to the dressing room. It's not locked.
Hey, Nick! Let's take a look inside. Maybe we can find something as a souvenir.
What do you mean, find?
You never know. There might be something like the samurai spear.
We don't need a spear. And that's the murder weapon, for crying out loud. Is that important? No clues here. Is that important? Let's see. Cola, candy, chips, gum. Huh, it's so normal. I was expecting some cool themed snacks or something. Popcorn at least.
Wait, look! Samurai soda! Nick, try this!
Ladies first. No clues here. Oh, I thought the table was... Oops, no, examine. I meant to hit this one. The remains of yesterday's lunch are scattered around. Everyone was probably too shocked to clean up. There's a T-bone on one of the plates, minus steak.
T-bone steak. That would have hit the spot.
You just had a burger.
Yeah, but I have a second stomach just for steaks.
What? The metal grate on the drain here has been taken off.
That's a pretty big drain. A kid could fit through there, I bet.
Yeah, if you snuck in that way, you wouldn't have to pay at the gate.
Well, if you want to leave that way, be my guest.
Right. Huh? Hey, I'm not a kid.
Looks like one of those electric-powered bicycles. I don't know about these. I mean, what's the point?
It makes it a lot easier to go up hills.
Don't people cycle to get exercise? There's a half-finished backdrop for a stage here. It looks like a castle. Probably Neo-Old Tokyo Castle. This? No? Okay, let's make sure I didn't miss anything here. How about this garage door? That must be the storage room. That's where they keep all the film equipment.
Wow, Nick! You know a lot about the industry.
What else would they keep in a film studio? Okay, let's see if we can go into Powers' room. Powers' room. October 16th, Global Studios. Dressing room. Oh, just dressing room. No numbers. Powers' dressing room. So this is where he was sleeping? Or at least, this is where he claims he was sleeping.
No one actually saw him taking a nap here, did they?
Right. And there's a picture of him near the crime scene. I hope he's telling the truth, for his sake. Let's poke around. What's in this bag?
This must be Powers' bag.
Hey, don't open that.
Look! An employee card key. That must be Powers'. It says Studio 1. Let's take it, Nick.
Borrow it. You mean borrow. Is that like his wig? There's a vast array of cosmetics here.
Ooh! This is the wig he used from the Samurai Boogie Woogie. Nick, try this on.
No. And how can you tell the name of a show just by looking at a wig?
I, kind of like samurai movies.
Kinda. What's on the table? There's a bunch of snacks on the table. They must give these to employees. Some tea and cookies.
Nick, I'm hungry.
You just had a burger.
Yeah, but I have a separate stomach for sweets.
How many stomachs does this girl have? There's some regular suits among the costumes here. Those must be his own clothes.
It'd be fun to wear one of the costumes.
I'd say you were already wearing one myself. Looks like someone was sleeping here. Maybe Powers did take a nap here yesterday. Alright, looks like that's it. Back to the employee area. Back to the main gate. Not gonna talk to you. Studio 1. I'm not gonna talk to, actually, is there anything new we can, no. Alright, move. Oh, do we have to, what are we trying to, examine. There we go. The entrance to Studio 1. This is the studio where they found Jack Hammer's body.
Let's go in and check it out, Nick.
I wonder if this card key, I wonder if this card key we borrowed from the dressing room will work. It opened!
Alright, we're in!
She's way too happy for someone visiting a crime scene. Let's go check it out. October 16th, Studio 1. What is it? You're real quiet all of a sudden.
Doesn't it give you the shivers, Nick? That white tape, it's so real.
Well, the evil magistrate did die here, and the steel samurai killed him. The murder weapon was a samurai spear. Sounds pretty real to me. Oh, fun fact time. The white tape outlines that they show in crime scenes and movies and stuff, not a thing if it's a murder. They only do the tape outlines if the person survived and they need to get them to the hospital for urgent care. So normally if it was like if someone died, then they will leave the body there until they're done investigating, take lots of pictures and stuff. But they don't use tape unless they have to move the body because the person's still alive and they need to go to the hospital. So, fun fact about that. Oh, not move. Examine. Examine the body, obviously. They outline where Jack Hammer's body lay with tape. His body was found still inside the evil magistrate costume. I guess that's why the head part looks like a helmet. Funny. I expected a spear stabbing wound would leave at least a few bloodstains. I guess the costume must have absorbed most of it. That's suspicious.
Look, a ladder!
That's a step ladder.
So, what's the difference?
You need to stop judging things based on narrow-minded cultural assumptions, Nick. Right. Sorry. This girl is out there.
Hey, look! That's the chair the director sits in. I've always wanted to sit in one of these. Hey, Nick, take a look at that. One of those black and white boards they clap at the start of filming. And look, a megaphone! A real live megaphone! Ready, Nick? Action!
This girl is more trouble than I thought.
Wow! Look at that camera! That must cost a ton!
Yeah, so don't touch it.
Whoa! It's heavier than I thought!
Hey, you! No touching that! I don't know who's talking yet. Oh, it's this girl. Sorry, my partner is kind of,
You know? No, I don't know!
Who are you?
Who, me? I'm an assistant here. I help with the props and stuff, moving them around, ordering new ones, etc. We're lawyers representing Mr. Will Powers. Oh, you're WP's people. WP? Oh, Will Powers, WP. I get it. I don't envy you guys one bit. But do what you can for WP, okay? He'd never hurt a fly. He has to be innocent. Don't worry, leave it to us.
I'm sorry, that's the voice you're getting. She's gonna be a
soft-spoken southerner.
Let's ask her about some stuff. Let's ask her about Will first, because she seems to be on our side. Did you know that Mr. Powers was sleeping in his room?
No, I wouldn't go in there unless I had some urgent message for him. I mean, it's his private... What kind of girl do you think I am?
What kind? No, I'm sure you're a fine girl. I'm sorry. So much for getting a confirmation of Powers' alibi. Day of the crime. Could you tell me anything about the day of the murder?
Yes, I was in the studio the whole day. I was the only assistant on staff that day, you see? Only one assistant? Yes, well, studio isn't doing so well right now. And yesterday was only rehearsal for our action sequences. Oh, I see. In the morning, we went through action sequences in the employee area. WP and Hammer were there along with everyone else.
The employee area? That's where Powers' dressing room is, right?
Yes, that's the place.
After eating lunch there, Mr. Hammer went to Studio 1. Then I saw WP go into his dressing room. But I didn't see either of them after that. What do we do, Nick? We haven't found anything. If WP was the only one who came to the studio, then he has to be the killer. They even have a photograph. Sorry. I know you're busy. Not really. Actually, there's been something bothering me. Aha! That's what I'm talking about. A clue! A lead! Well, I don't know about that, but that day, just after noon, I sensed someone was here. You sensed? Yes, several times. Some other studio employees maybe? No, I don't think so. The only thing we had scheduled that was an action scene run through. I was the only assistant here that day. I had the feeling it was someone from outside. Really? But wait, if someone had come in here, wouldn't that security lady have noticed them? Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, I don't have any better information than that. No, thanks. That helps us out a lot. Anything helps. Let's go put that security lady on the spot.
Follow-up questions. So, you sense that someone other than the regular film crew was in the studio?
Yes, I think.
I think doesn't cut it as a witness testimony.
Nick, what about that security lady?
If someone else came into the studio, she must have seen them. Fine, I'll go talk to her. I think I'm done looking here. See if he has anything new to say. Nope. October 16th, Global Studios, main gate.
What? You're still here? Really? You look as though you've seen a ghost.
Assistant's claim. Tell me about it.
What? I saw that suspicious look on your face.
I wanted to ask you again about yesterday. You came here at 1 p.m., correct? And the estimated time of Hammer's death was 2:30. Are you sure that Powers was the only one to go through here between those times?
Sure as I can be.
But we have a witness who thinks there was someone from outside here that day.
What?
Are you absolutely sure you were watching the whole time?
Ma'am? Who was it? Who told you that? Who dares question me? Alright, you better tell me and tell me quick, you spiky-haired cretin. Someone's been complaining about the work I do, eh?
We were just talking to the assistant in Studio 1.
Her? She's not even a full-time employee. All you youngins are like that nowadays, running your mouths like there was no tomorrow, saying this and that and other things. Well, when I was young, let me tell you, we knew a thing or two about respecting your elders. Back when I did it, was a crying shame. If you used today, you still... Oh my god, I can't keep up.
She left.
Well, Nick, this is our chance to do what we can without her looking over our shoulders.
Examine the computer! The computer that runs the studio's security cameras. Nick!
Maybe we can see the photo of Powers with this computer.
Yeah, maybe. Should I try the computer? Yes. Okay, let's give it a try.
You know how to work these things, Nick?
Looks like I just have to enter in a few numbers. Let's see. First, I need the date of the murder. It looks like the camera turned off at 1 p.m. that day. Oh, turned on at 1 p.m. that day. 1. That was when the security lady arrived at the guard station. Please enter the number of the security camera.
think it's 307. There, entered.
Hey, it printed out the data for that day.
Let's see what we got. Huh?
How is this a picture of Will Powers?
Well, he's the one who always wears that suit. I guess that's why the security lady thought it was him.
I don't imagine the detective was very happy with this photo as evidence.
Something's printed on the back.
Huh? October 15, 2 p.m., photo number 2.
What does that mean?
Maybe there's more than one photo data from that day. Maybe there's more photo data from that day, sorry.
Nope, that's the only one in the computer.
Yeah, we got a picture.
Hey, Nick! Can't we use this photo as evidence for the trial?
Yeah.
We'll put that security lady in her place with this.
Right. We'll put her in her place.
Hey, that's what I said. Anyway, let's show her this photo and see what she says.
Wait, let's not.
Why not?
It's never a good idea to reveal your hand to the enemy too soon.
Nick, you're craftier than I gave you credit for. Why, you could be the next evil magistrate.
Hey, why do I have to be the villain?
Relax, it was just a joke. So, are we done for today?
I think this photo is what we needed for the trial. Still, it'd be better if we had some idea who the real killer was. Maybe it really is that security lady. To be continued. Alright, let's do a little quick save. I can see the cat. I can see a paw. The foam covers it up if I were to tip it to where the camera can see. There it is. Wait, is that visible? Hold on. Now how about preview show? There's the cat. Cat that fell in my cup.
Okay.
October 18th, 10 a.m., District Courtroom number 4. That was my imitation of the crowd noises. Court is now in session for the trial of Mr. Will Powers. The prosecution is ready, Your Honor. The defense is ready, Your Honor. Very well. Mr. Edgeworth, your opening statement, please. The prosecution will show the court that at 2:30 on October 15th, the defendant, Mr. Will Powers, killed the fellow actor Jack Hammer in Studio 1 of Global Studios. I love the names of this game. Will Powers, like Willpower, and Jackhammer. It is impossible for anyone else to have committed this heinous crime. The evidence presented during the trial will all point to this fact. I see. Very well. I would like to move on to some testimony. Mr. Edgeworth, the prosecution may call its first witness. Very well. I call a most familiar face, Detective Gumshoe, to the stand. Detective, if you would briefly describe this case to the court. Yes, sir. I'll explain it with the guide map here. To understand this case, it's important to grasp the layout of the studio, sir. This here is the employee area. The actors did a run-through of their action scenes during the morning here. This is the main gate to the studios. The security lady that works at the studio was here at 1 p.m. on that day. Past the security station is the gate, see? Past that are the studios. And here it is, Studio 1. This is the scene of the murder, where the body was found. Now, on the day of the murder, October 14th, there were only 3 people here. The victim, Jack Hammer, the defendant, Will Powers, and a young woman, the production assistant. All the production staff were in the employee area until noon. Then, after lunch, the victim, Jack Hammer, went to Studio 1. Right after that, at 1 p.m., the security lady got to the guard station. Now jump ahead to later that day, 5 p.m. The production staff came to Studio 1 to perform a rehearsal. Needless to say, the rehearsal was cancelled. The time of death was 2:30 p.m. The samurai spear found lodged in the victim's chest was the murder weapon. That's the case in brief. Anyone like to hear that again? Should I listen to that whole thing again? No. I think I can probably remember that. So, the murder weapon was a spear. How medieval. Add it to the court record. Your Honor, this case is quite as simple if you ask one question. And that question is, what did the security lady at the guard station see? Understood. Let's call the security officer to the stand. Will the witness declare her name?
Oh, my, aren't you a handsome fellow? I'm afraid I'm a bit flustered.
Same! Your name, please.
Oh, dearie, no need for you to be embarrassed. Just call me Grandma.
Your name, please. Seems Edgeworth has a bit of trouble getting his witnesses to say their names.
Wendy Oldbag, dearie. So just call me Grandma. It's actually my name. So even when I was young, I was an old bag, but I didn't dare. Still, the children were making fun of me just because of my name. Can you believe it? But there was this boy, he was captain of the chess club in junior high, and when he called me an old bag, but I just cried and cried because you see.
Objection! I object to the witness's talkativeness. Objection sustained. The witness will refrain from rambling on the stand.
I was just getting to the good part, dearie.
Perhaps we can get to the testimony? Now, the witness was stationed at the main gate on the day of the murder, correct?
Yes, see, I was.
And to get to the scene of the murder, someone would have to pass by you.
You know your stuff, dearie.
You may begin your testimony. She sure is one hell of an old bag. I love doing her voice, though. It's gonna kill my throat.
On the day of the murder, I arrived at the guard station at 1 p.m. Poor old Hammer and the rest had been doing a run-through there since morning. I had some errands to run that morning. Anyway, it was 1 when I got to the guard station. I was at the main gate from then until 5. Now, the murder happened at 2:30 p.m., right? Interesting to me because a certain man walked right by me at 2 p.m. It was Powers. That man right there. He was headed towards the studio.
You saw the defendant then? Very well. Let's begin the cross-examination. Mr. Wright? Yes, Your Honor. Okay, time to present that photo. Do the murder, blah, blah, blah. Come on, let me skip this. Okay. Run through since morning. Errands to run. Was old. Actually, I kind of want to press that. Just see if she'll tell me why she wasn't there. What kind of errands?
Oh, well, you know.
Answer the question.
Actually, I was watching poor Hammer and Powers, observing, you know.
Observing? Weren't you supposed to be at the guard station?
Whippersnapper! I told you I locked the gate, didn't I? I did my job.
I'm not sure your boss would see it that way.
Anyway, I always watch Hammer's run-throughs. Always. Never missed one in all my years. Wow, I want to see a Steel Samurai run-through too.
You could quit being a spirit medium and take up guard duty.
Not a bad idea. Anyway, it was 1 when I got to the guard station. I was at the main gate from then until 5. Now, the murder happened at 2:30 p.m., right? I don't want to read all this.
A certain man walked right by 2:30. It was Powers. Present the photo. That's a guide map. Present the photo. Yeah. Objection! I love his hand poses. Let me get this straight, old bag. Miss Old Bag. You've been saying this since yesterday that you saw Mr. Powers, correct? But you're talking about the man in this photo, aren't you? Just a moment, Mr. Wright. Let me see that photo. What is this exactly? None other than the Steel Samurai, defender of Neo-Old Tokyo. Miss Old Bag, is this the Mr. Powers that you saw?
Of course! Didn't your mama teach you any sense, Sonny? Anyone can plainly see that that's Powers, right?
No, they can't! Well, I mean, I wonder... True, Mr. Powers does play the role of the Steel Samurai. But that doesn't mean Mr. Powers is the Steel Samurai. That face is so good.
I know that. I wasn't born yesterday.
No one in the court is accusing you of that, witness. He's having trouble calling her old bag, apparently. However, you do not have proof that the person in this photo is Mr. Will Powers, do you?
Nosy old man. Of course I have proof. What?
Huh? Even Edgeworth is surprised. The prosecution would like to ask the witness, please make known all the information in your possession ahead of time.
How was I to know that everyone would be so nosy? You should be ashamed, all of you. Anyway, I showed that photo to the young detective. He told me, this isn't any good as evidence, pal. He didn't even give it a second look.
Wow, old Windbag has left even Edgeworth speechless. She's good. Let's hear about your proof then.
I never say anything I don't mean, mind you. That morning, during the run-through of the action scene, I saw Powers trip and fall. He broke one of the props, and it was a big mess. Apparently, he sprained his ankle pretty bad. Now, look at that picture. You can see he's dragging his leg. See? Clear as day. That's how I knew it was Powers. Happy?
So he had a sprained ankle. Oh, so he had sprained his ankle. Very well. Mr. Wright, you may cross-examine the witness. She's got to be hiding something. I'll press her until she squeals.
I never say anything.
I don't want to read this all over again. Same thing. Nothing as action. Saw Powers trip and fall. Broke one of the props. I want to know about that. He broke a prop?
Sure did. His own samurai spear.
His samurai spear? The murder weapon?
Luckily, I was there with my duct tape to fix it.
This strikes me as a significant detail. I'd better write this down in the court record.
Apparently, he sprained his ankle pretty bad. You can see he's dragging his leg. See? Clear as day.
Are you absolutely sure? Take a look at the picture again. So he was walking strangely because he was injured. It does look like he was dragging his foot.
See? And you didn't trust me, whippersnapper. That's how I knew it was Powers. Happy?
I don't know.
Well, Nick, find any glaring contradictions?
Well, she seems pretty sure it was Powers in that photo. I guess I'll just press her and see if I can shake her conviction. Okay. Oops. Let's go with this then. Trip and fall?
Yes, and to think he's supposed to be the Steel Samurai. The Powers sprained his ankle. I helped make it better for him, of course.
You helped make it better?
I kissed it where it hurt.
Let's just skip over that part, shall we? Where was the assistant then?
Oh, her? She was clearing up the backdrops, I think. She didn't know about Powers' ankle.
You may continue your testimony. He broke one of the props. You already pressed that. Apparently he sprained his ankle pretty bad. Was Mr. Powers' ankle badly sprained?
Not so bad that he couldn't walk around. He went to his dressing room to rest up after lunch.
Thus the nap.
Anyway, I saw him dragging his foot when he walked.
Dragging his foot, okay. I think we've heard enough. Haven't we, Your Honor? Well, there's one thing that bothers me. Which is? Where is this Steel Samurai costume now? Actually, well, we couldn't find it. We're looking, though. Anyway, that's not important. The witness did see the Steel Samurai, yes. And it is clear that the person in the Steel Samurai suit was Mr. Will Powers. I suppose that's right. Are you sure? You're sure, Your Honor? Object! Someone else could have pretended to be him. Could have been the old bag or the jackhammer. We keep talking possibilities. Well, you have to agree that this photo shows the Steel Samurai. Nowhere in this photo can we see Mr. Will Powers. The defense has a point. I also wonder if someone else not caught on camera could have killed Mr. Hammer. We have to consider that possibility also. Then allow me to remove doubt from your mind, Your Honor. Will the witness continue her testimony, please?
No need to ask twice. The time of poor Hammer's death was 2:30 p.m., true? Only one person I saw go to the studio before then was Will Powers.
Oh, sorry, I messed up that line. Whatever.
No one else went there. If they had, I would have seen them.
So, if no one else went to the studio, then it would have to be the Steel Samurai who did it. Mr. Wright, you may cross-examine the witness. Alright, I think after this cross-examination I'm gonna end it, because it's getting close to 5. The time before, okay, we're gonna skip, go to the, no one else went there, press. What about before you got to the guard station?
You mean before 1? Why, everyone was in the employee area before then. But I locked the main gate so no one could get in. Not to mention, if they had, I would have seen them.
I wanna... the picture with the number 2 photo. Okay. The only person I saw go to was everyone else went there. If they had, I would have seen them. Okay, let's present the photo on this line. It might be the one before. Oops, no. Present. Hold on. Look at this photograph one more time. This photo was taken by the camera at the gate for the studio, correct?
Yes, sirree, Sonny.
So whenever anyone passes by here, it automatically takes a picture.
And here I thought you didn't know your head from a hole in the ground.
Right. Anyway. It's also true that the computer in the guard station records all security cam data.
Oh, you know, if you wanted to work at the studio, we might just have an opening.
That very computer printed out this photo. Note that on the back of the photo are the printed words October 15th, 2 p.m., photo number 2.
Even I know that means it was taken at 2 p.m. on October 15th. Really, Sonny?
Actually, I knew that too. The issue here is the bit at the end where it says, photo number 2.
Photo number 2?
The computer only held data for one photo on that day. Don't you think that's odd? Shouldn't this photo be photo number 1 if it really was the only photo? Order, order! Please tell the court what you mean by this, Mr. Wright. Actually, that's what I want to ask the witness. This evidence shows that not 1 but 2 people went to the studio that day, yet there is only data for one of the photos. Who could have erased the data for the other photo? Only someone with access, the security lady herself.
You watch your mouth, whippersnapper. The only person I saw that day was Will Powers.
But the camera on the gate fired twice. That means 2 people went by.
Well, yes, that's what it would seem to mean.
Can the witness explain this to the court?
I don't understand these newfangled computer things. Edgy boy, help!
Huh? Believe me, I want to, but I don't know what this means either.
Some help you are. You're a whippersnapper, too. Whippersnapper.
Something the matter, Miss Oldbag?
That's right. I just remembered something.
Let me guess. Someone else passed by the gate? Someone other than the Steel Samurai?
Well, yes, I suppose you could put it that way.
I see. Your testimony, please.
The other person. Every day after I finish my guard duties, I have one other important job to do. I go through the photos recorded on the security computer and check them. I throw out any photos that aren't suspicious looking, you see? Come to think of it, now I remember throwing out one photo that day.
Miss Oldbag, this is the first I've heard of this.
Well, of course, Sonny. I've only just remembered it.
Right. Anyway, Mr. Wright, please begin the cross-examination.
Well, I'd say this was a turn for the unexpected, but I kind of expected this.
Go through the photos, check them. I throw out photos that aren't suspicious looking. Come to, I remember throwing one photo out that day. Well, who the heck was in that photo you erased?
A fanboy.
A fanboy?
Steel Samurai fanboys. Real freaks, if you ask me.
They get information about the rehearsals from gosh knows where. They're always hanging about. One was there that day.
Well, wait a second. Didn't you just say no one else could get in? I locked the main gate so no one could get in. Those were your words.
Well, if you must know, there's a drain that goes into the employee area. The grate has been loose for a while. It leads outside, and well, that's where they come in.
They come in through the drain?
I told you they were freaks. Oh, and they're kids, children, whippersnappers.
Kids? So, on the photo that you erased,
it was a boy, probably 2nd or 3rd grade.
What? Oh my. How the turns have tabled. Order. Let me get this straight. You saw 2 people pass by the gate on their way to the studios that day. One was a steel samurai dragging his leg. The other was a boy who looked to be about in 2nd or 3rd grade.
Oh yes, well, we see this his type there every day. Can't stop him. Can't catch him.
A boy in 2nd or 3rd grade, I assume it would be hard, if not impossible, for a young boy to wield the samurai spear? Impossible, I think. It's quite heavy.
Right. As I said, I didn't pay him much mind. That's why I erased the data. Nick, what's going on?
I mean, the boy was there. That makes him a suspect. Yeah, and they're already trying to unsuspect him. The court will take a 5-minute recess. I want the defense and the prosecution to consider this new information. And no forgetting vital information this time. Alright, that's a good place to stop. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you again next time. We will continue from here.